I just want to share a few thoughts on the Charlie Kirk situation as a microcosm for human behavior. What we saw yesterday was a tragic death of an innocent person who was speaking what they thought, and someone clearly didn't want them to speak what they thought. This is a prevailing problem in all of culture and all civilizations, perhaps through all of human history, that rather than ask questions, we just make assumptions. And there are people who don't care what Kirk thinks. They hate him because he thinks differently than they do. This is the same precipitation event that leads to wars, conflicts, family feuds, marital discord, and genocide. That people spend too much time jumping to conclusions. They look first and listen very little. You may have heard the aphorism that we have two ears, so we should think twice as much or listen twice as much as we speak. There was a lot said yesterday in a few seconds with a small piece of lead sent at rapid velocity into another man's chest who was saying things that the other person didn't like. I have listened to people who I've come to not like them. I've listened to people who I've come to like them. I have a friend who's an atheist. I asked him once, how is he my friend? And he said, I keep in mind the following words. I might be wrong. And so when I talk about things he doesn't like and doesn't believe in, he listens and gives me my time to speak because I also give him his. And we can have discussions. And there are things we've agreed that we're not going to ever agree on, and we don't discuss those anymore. It does not affect our friendship. We have entire countries, entire regions, entire racial groups who have no interest in rhetoric anymore. They just jump to conclusions. Let me give you some other examples. I've been to France 4 times in my life. And if you are an American who's never been to France, you've probably heard that the French don't like Americans. And I can tell you there are places in France that don't like Americans. But there are also French people who don't like those places. My first time in France, I was in Alsace-Lorraine, in Strasbourg. It was Christmas time, and I have come to the conclusion that they were kind of tempestuous because they were a little bit fed up with the influx of tourists, which I can totally understand, because I was there as a tourist to see the Christmas market, like a lot of other tourists. Unlike a lot of other tourists, I also speak French and German, but that didn't seem to bother them because I don't look French or German, and I don't care to. My second trip to France, I spent in Normandy and Bretagne, because I have a friend who lives in Bretagne, and I went there to visit. I was shocked to discover that Normandians and Bretagnans love Americans because of World War II. Almost every day, I had people offer me stuff. And the reason that they knew I was an American is because my friend who lives there, ironically, doesn't speak French. So to talk to him, we spoke English, because he speaks German too, but I figured speaking German in France was probably a bad idea. So we spoke English. Everyone knew we were Americans, and they were respectful and grateful. I asked the guy, so my friend's daughter is married to a man's son who lives in Britannia, that's why they live there. And I asked Gilda at dinner that night, I said some questions about France and my perspective, and he said, even we hate Paris. It's Parisians that give France a bad name, generally speaking, because Paris is their New York City. So in order to get anywhere, you'll have to go to Paris. And French people resent that because Parisians can tell you're not from there. And I've been to Paris twice, and it's very obvious. I speak French, but they still look down on you because I don't have a Parisian accent. And I've learned going to Paris that if I want to not be looked down on, you talk to cops, because the cops are generally speaking not from Paris, because it's considered a lowbrow job, so Parisians are above it. So they're from other parts of France, and they don't have the same kind of biases. But traveling is an example of this. It's funny to watch people look at me, peg me as an American, and then be shocked that I can speak their language. I was in Belgium this summer, in Bastogne, which sees a lot of Americans for perhaps unobvious reasons, but the Battle of the Bulge specifically. And in order to get out of town by a shorter route cheaper route, I bought a bus ticket from the old Bastogne train station. There was only one place in town to buy a ticket. It was a small shop just to the northeast of where the old train station is. And I went into the shop there and asked the woman if she spoke English, because in that part of Belgium they speak Dutch, and I don't speak Dutch. And she said no, or she said not very well. And I said, parlez-vous français? And she said oui. And so I switched with people behind me in line from obvious English into French. Je voudrais acheter un billet en Flixbus aujourd'hui, s'il vous plaît. How was that? And she said that was very good. And I was able to communicate with them. They were all shocked because it's not what they expect. They saw me, pegged me as an American, and then had an expectation. So let's go back to Charlie Kirk. People see him. They know a little bit about what he is and what he says. Maybe they've seen a few videos, or they know the sign, or they're aware of somehow what his politics are for some reason. And then they assume they know everything about him, including his motives and his objectives. And most of them have never talked with him. I've seen a few of his videos, and people at events will talk at him, but they do not talk with him. They go to confront him. They do not go there with the possibility that I might be wrong. And I like this. As a scientist, we're taught this. And in fact, it's something that's going to come up in class today. Or no, it came up last time. One of the things that has to be there in order for it to be scientific is it has to be falsifiable. You have to keep in mind the possibility that you might be wrong. Because otherwise, you start bending facts to fit your theories. And then you start finding things that back up what you already happen to believe. And that's the problem. We see it in dating, we see it in commerce, we see it in politics, we see it in all sorts of human interactions where, especially with dating, where you are relegated to a picture and a paragraph, and you're lucky if you get 5 seconds where someone looks at your profile before they swipe left or right, usually left. In my case, it's left unless they're a con artist. But where they assume they know everything about you that they need to know, and that what they can see on the outside is what you are and all that matters about what you are. I meet a lot of people who are like, wow, I'm glad I was forced to get to know you because I never would have decided to do so. Because they look with their eyes and don't listen to find out who I am and what I believe in. So I want to close this out with that thought. If you have listened to and put up with my rantings and musings for any period of time, I appreciate that. I know we may not agree, and there's some things in past videos I don't agree with anymore, because I have learned by talking to other people, by educating myself further, that I have been wrong. There's times I would have been glad to have been wrong that I was right. I'm not so regimented and firm that I am not correctable and teachable, malleable, and improvable. But that's what we have here. We have people who have no intention of being better people, who just wish to remove voices and influences from their lives with which they happen to disagree. I was removed from Twitter yesterday. I still don't know why, for something that I said. And my comments were pretty mild compared to a lot of other things I saw that were posted. And I suspect that it was because there was someone who didn't like what I said who got me reported. And so I'm going to have to fight for my right to speak there again. And if I said something wrong, I'll admit it. I may have gone too far. I don't know, but I don't know what it was. But we have people who do not want to hear things that only want to hear silk dripping in their ears, who do not wish to be challenged or contradicted, contravened, or corrected. And those are perhaps the most dangerous people who have 2 ears and never use them at all. So if you've listened, if you've put up with, whether you've accepted it or dismissed it, I appreciate you. Thank you for persisting. And as I say in other things I've written on my blog and in my books, when you see them, if you disagree and I'm wrong, then thank God that He has taught you to be wiser than I. Godspeed. And may He bless you in all the things that you do that are good and brave and true. Bye.